kind of feel like that's false advertising. That's about 10 years old.
Oh.
Or AI.
AI, oh, interesting.
So Rena, thank you for joining. So maybe before we dive in your talk about your company Chirp, maybe we first run a video that actually explains a little bit what you're trying to do. So I think it's clear what you're trying to do from the video, but so maybe to start, just for understanding, how big is this problem of online bullying and grooming, and what are the developments? Is it getting worse? Is it getting better? So give us an idea.
It seems to be getting worse. There are the three different problem domains that we focus on are cyberbullying, grooming, and suicide and self-harm. If you take cyberbullying, 40% of 12 to 16-year-olds would say that they've encountered cyberbullying, so it's pervasive. It's not a small issue.
40 to 60%?
40% of 12 to 16-year-olds, will say they've encountered it. And then children that have been cyberbullied are 3 times more likely to attempt suicide. So those two big problem areas are quite heavily linked. And if you take grooming, online grooming, that has become even more pervasive. There's a process called pig butchering, where it is boiler rooms full of people with laptops or tablets, pretending to be, in the main, teenage girls, trying to entrap teenage boys, honey trap them. They'll use AI-driven avatars. Sometimes it's chatbots, and it's automated. It's organised crime on an industrial scale, and what they'll try and do is trick the young boy into being, thinking they're in a legitimate relationship, and then it'll be I'll show you mine if you show me yours. They'll try and get the young boy to send a nude image of themselves, and as soon as that nude image is sent, that is then used for blackmail. I'm going to put this on your public Instagram page. I'm going to show all your parents, your parents and all your friends what you've been doing. Go and get your mother's credit card, pay us money, or give us more images, and then they sell them. So this type of thing is happening on an industrial scale, and the unfortunate thing about AI is AI can be used to solve the problem, but it also is propagating the problem as well.
I can understand.
That's devastating to hear, the percentages, and also that this technology can be used for good and also to perpetuate this on an industrial level. To go back to technology, you developed this amazing solution, and what are the special things of Chirp is that the parents can actually take a look at the conversations between children. So how does that work in terms of privacy?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And when we were starting out, we really wanted to bring child protection stakeholders along with us. We didn't want to. Spyware is available an awfully long time, and spyware will, it'll make all of your child's online activity available to you. But as a parent, you need to make the decision to invade their trust, and you need to spend all the time physically going through all of their online activity. So what we wanted to do was create a solution where children and parents could work together, where we could reduce the familial friction around smartphone use, because we're all familiar with, you know, you start off with you can have an hour on your phone every day, but very, very quickly it's, oh, but everybody's on their phones and blah, 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 and then there's familial friction. And all of the research would suggest that from child protection stakeholders like Sonia Livingston, for example, if you spy on your child, they'll find out and you'll push them into secret internet use. So they just save up money and they buy a burner phone, and then you've got no visibility at all. You don't know what your child is doing online. So the important thing is to make it a collaborative approach. So we don't send the information to the parents. So if we detect, say, the child is being cyberbullied, we block the message, we tell the child that we've blocked the message. Child is always aware that we're working on the phone in the background, and we send the parent an alert, and we save that message in a locked file on the child's phone. Invite the parent to go and look at it with the child and decide whether, yes, that's cyberbullying or grooming, or it's not. And then the parent and child tell us whether we've got it right or not, and then that helps us improve our detection efficiency. So in theory, if you think about VLOPs like Meta or TikTok, they've got these moderators, but one moderator has to moderate for thousands of users. For every one user, we've got 2 moderators, parent and child. So that will enrich our data, and we'll get as close as, damn it, to 100% detection efficiency, never 100%, but as close as possible. But the crucial thing is we bring the children along on the journey, and they feel a sense of agency. They've got unfettered access to their device, but they know if they're in trouble or if we detect harm, then we'll step in. But they'll always be a part of the solution, and they can work with their parents. Children don't want to be cyberbullied. They don't want to be groomed.
No,
they don't want, access to or be encouraged to search for self-harm. But it's important that they feel like they've got this autonomy, and their privacy isn't being invaded. It's the same principle as, we were all kids once, and you got to a point where you thought, I want a lock on my bedroom door. I want the lock on the bedroom door. And, that's a part of growing up. You feel like you want to be respected, so that's what we're trying to do. The equivalent of the lock on the bedroom door.
Very
but
interesting.
it's also kind of embarrassing for a child when something like this is happening to go proactively to the parents, right?
Yeah.
So that solves that also. But I have another thing that came to my mind just now. These are risks that we as parents might not understand, right? When I was young, long time ago, my father was a neurologist, and he got all the young boys that were driving these mopeds with brain injuries, and so he forbid me to drive a moped. Now, of course, I did exactly what you said, so my friend had a moped and I drove his, but nevertheless, but he understood the risk of driving a moped. But with this social behavior, and we saw, Sander showed this, we are confused. We don't understand the behavior at all. We don't understand these risks. So is that also part of helping the parents actually explain that their child is at risk?
Yeah.
It's educational,
It is educational, and we give parents tools. So say, for instance, if we detect your child is being groomed, we send you an alert, and we don't just leave it at that and leave you kind of, as a parent thinking, what do I do next? We give advice and tips and tricks on what to do, how to communicate with your child, how to make it not a... So, for example, we had a case where there was this... She's a lady now, she's 22. I bumped into her at the airport, actually, on the way out. And when she was 11, she was groomed for 3 years. She was living in France, and she was groomed for 3 years. And ultimately, it ended in a very credible suicide attempt, and her mother found her, put her in the car, was racing to the hospital. What's wrong? What's wrong? And she finally told her after 3 years, here's what's wrong. And her mother did what most parents would do by instinct, grabbed the phone out of her hand and threw it out the window with all of the evidence. And it was gone. And this man is still active. 10 years on, he's still active on Facebook. So it is very important to enlighten parents and let them know. Quite often, well, it doesn't happen often. Sometimes I propose Chirp to men or women, and usually they go, oh, immediately, take my money, when can I buy this for my child? But sometimes people will surprisingly say, oh no, I've got a really great relationship with my children. They're really honest with me. I've got a really great relationship. There's no way anything like that would happen without them communicating with me. But one of the reasons why I started this company was because when I had kids, my perspective changed entirely. All of a sudden, all I could see were headlines of children that had been systematically cyberbullied, groomed, sextorted from, coerced, and pushed into suicide. And the one common thread was, parents didn't know there was a problem until it was far too late. You know, we deal with Samsung, and the head of Samsung Ireland said, I will back anything if it means that I don't have, 3 times last year he had to have difficult conversations with parents, bereaved parents, who came in and handed him their child's smartphone and said, help me understand what happened. And he couldn't.
Yeah.
You know, so it is a bit naive for parents to think that their child communicates everything with them. It's naive for a parent to think that their children should communicate everything with them. Children are human beings. They're entitled to secrets. That's part of growing up. It's a part of living. But what this solution does is helps them be autonomous, helps them be independent, discover who they are as human beings, but if they're under threat, then it gives their parent an opportunity to step in.
Yeah, but leave them, I mean, also show confidence to them and that they can carry the responsibility.
Correct.
Now, last time we talked, you explained that it is on Android, and then we talked about the opportunity of iPhone, because many children have iPhones or even prefer. Are you making progress there?
So we can't code for iPhone because it's highly proprietary and locked
they lock it down, right?
Yeah. And like Ben says, the world is awash with Android. I think this 86% of the world's smartphones are Android. And I suppose this is one of the value propositions for the likes of Samsung, for example, because particularly in the West, Samsung have 2 big issues. They need to increase handset sales because handset sales have fallen off a cliff. So we used to hold on to our phones for about 2.92 years. That has gone up to 4 years now because the incremental improvements in camera features are proving no longer attractive enough for you and I to spend €1,000 on a new flagship phone. We're holding on to our phones for longer.
I will spend it anyhow.
Oh, gosh.
I'm an idiot, right?
Early adopter. So they need USPs to increase handset sales, but also they need to fundamentally erode Apple's market share. So what's happening at the moment is you and I are creating tomorrow's Apple user. In 71% of cases, we don't change operating system. So the bane of Samsung's life is hand-me-down culture. So you go, your 11-year-old says to you, Dad, give me a phone. Eventually you capitulate and you say, here, have my old 10, I'll upgrade to a 16. And so in 71% of cases, you've created tomorrow's Apple user, because once they're in, they're trapped by ecosystem. They get AirPods, they get an iPad, they get a Mac, and then the fear of losing data, and everyone's trapped. So we give Samsung the opportunity to be the first operating system in the hands of a user, because if they want to access Chirp's capabilities, they need to buy a new device because it's embedded software. You have to go very, very deep in the tech stack to access all incoming and outgoing data, particularly in encrypted apps. We proved it working on WhatsApp first because it's the most dangerous app for children. Yep. You know, usually in a grooming attempt, for example, an online groomer will contact your child on their open Facebook page or Instagram page or on Roblox or something like that. Invite the child into an encrypted app, completely out of the reach of any moderation or big tech filters. And then they will start to develop trust. They'll use phraseology like, I'm like you, I had problems with my parents too. Once trust is gained, they'll ask the child to send a nude image. And then once that nude image is sent, that is the tipping point in the grooming attempt. It's too late then there's blackmail, more images, and entrapment. So basically what we are trying to do is stop that first nude image from being sent, ultimately. Yep. So this is all a part, getting back to your iPhone points, I get around to it eventually. Eventually, perhaps we will be able to leverage our AI components. Ultimately, we will likely become a data company. The technology has 2 different sides to it. There's the operating system modification, which is patented. That's the disruptive method by which we access all the incoming and outgoing data. But then we have to compare that data against our own AI-driven databases of harmful content. So we're building small language models, like Ray was talking about, and they're very, very domain-specific. So we'll go to market with human-level detection efficiency, but that, which is, we estimate is about 75%. But then very quickly, once we get more and more users, that will increase and increase and increase.
Very interesting. Going from phones and operating systems to you, actually. I already gave you a shout out for the awards you won.
Thank
and you've been awarded a Woman in AI Person of the Year by AI Ireland in 2023, as I said. Do you see yourself as a role model? What kind of responsibility does that come with for you?
As a woman founder, I do see myself as a role model, not necessarily in the AI space, but generally as a CEO and founder of a company. You know, I've got an 8-year-old girl, and when I was in school and we went to the career guidance counsellor would say, you'll make a really good secretary, or maybe you might go into nursing, that kind of thing. I'm showing my age now. But it was never a possibility that I could be an entrepreneur or a business person. It wouldn't have come into the radar at all. So it was happenstance. Actually, I started off my career as a salesperson. I just ended up being CEO of a group of radio stations and then moved on and started my own companies. So what I want for my 8-year-old daughter is, if she wants to, at the moment she wants to be a vet, that's fine. That'll probably change 8-9 times. But what I want for her to have on her radar is that starting and owning a company and being a CEO is a possibility for her. And if she wants that agency, it's a complete possibility. You know, it's an old trope, but if you can't see it, you can't be it. So I kind of see my role as a role model to just be it, so other girls can see it.
That's amazing. You also won another award in October of this year. That's for the Disruptive AI Award. Yeah. So you won a lot of awards. You are very present also on social media, as we all know, that know you well. That's all nice and, of course, very commendable, but does it help your business, actually?
It really does. I mean, I'm sure everybody in here knows about playing the LinkedIn game. If it didn't happen on LinkedIn, it didn't happen at all. You know, you can leverage it. You know, we've got investors. You know, we got funded from the Irish government. We got there was a competitive grant process, and we got a 2.8 million non-dilutive grant, and then we had to co-fund that with 1.3 million. And we didn't raise that from any institutional investors. They saw us as too high risk. What was constantly being quoted at us was hero or zero. You know, you'll either set the world on fire or else you're going to waste all my money. So eventually we convinced 13 angel investors to come in and back us. And I can't get out to 13 angel investors every month and give them an update. So it's really pleasing for them to be able to see the awards and the fact that I'm up here trying to create thought leadership in online child protection. You know, I just came back from Dubai speaking with investors about our Series A raise and meeting the likes of Eti Salat. You know, you put that stuff up on LinkedIn instead of having to pick up the phone or go and have a coffee with people. You're showing them that you're making progress passively and that you're getting towards your goal. So it really does help, that social media presence.
Good inspiration.
So look out, you'll see a post later on. I might tag you in it.
Probably also to show that AI is not only a threat and dangerous and it will take all of our jobs and destroy it, but you can actually use AI for good. And I mean, every parent wants to protect their child, so that's immediately a case for AI for good. So do you get that response as well?
Yes, we do. And we kind of feel like we're pushing an open door with almost everyone. There's really very little pushback. You know, we don't get questioned very hard. Now, with some investors, they'll question hard, and we welcome that type of scrutiny.
Do you see that the platforms, are they also interested, that they see that this is also part of their responsibility, right?
No, they don't. So I met Meta in London a couple of weeks ago to ask them for data. You know, Ray was talking about gold standard data earlier on, and we are building our small language models that are very domain specific, and we're being really rigid about only putting in gold standard data. So we're trying to get parents to submit their chat logs. We did a massive public campaign. But we also looked at anything that was open source, and there's precious little open source. Even in the English language, there's very little that's open source. So we wanted to go beyond keywords, key phrase. We wanted sentiment. We wanted to look at entire conversations from the beginning to end. Look at flags, for example, you know, ghosting. You know, if your child is on a WhatsApp group and they're making comments but nobody is replying, that's a form of bullying. And that combined with someone saying, oh, you were wearing a terrible dress today, that could meet the bar for cyberbullying and trigger an event. But we wanted to supplement the data sets as much as we possibly could and unearth absolutely everything. And so we went to Meta and we said, would you share your data with us? And it was a hard no. We went to Roblox, would you share your data with us? Oh, we'd really love to help you, but no. We went to Snapchat.
What's that? Are they ethically disturbed? Or?
Roblox made the comments I'm going to try and get this for you internally, but I know what I'm going to be told is this data is proprietary. And I said, it's not your data, it's my son's data. He's playing Roblox. It's his data, it's not yours. It's your child's data.
But it's their responsibility for
it is their
or
responsibility.
not.
And
But they deny it.
they will say that they are using that data to create tools that improve the experience and reduce harms, but it's just not working. What they're doing simply is not working effectively enough.
It's infuriating. I mean,
I'll give you an example. TikTok. Children are supposed to be 13 years of age to use TikTok. TikTok will say we removed 85,000 accounts that we believe are children under the age of 13, but they won't give context. They won't say it's 85,000 out of what we believe may be 20 million accounts that are children under 13. I mean, anybody that's on TikTok, our TikTok friend crying earlier on, it taps into your inner child. It's appealing to children. It's small shorts. It's immediate gratification.
Everybody's doing it.
It's somewhat childish, and even adults that like TikTok, they're tapping into their inner child by being engaged by it, in my humble opinion. But they're saying we removed 85,000, but in the context of what? Was that 10%? Was it 5%? Was it 1%? Was it 90%? And there's a reason why they're not giving context.
Shifting gears, because I also want to have time, and time is always going so fast with these things. So, can you tell us a little bit about the startup climate and the community in Ireland? Because I believe it's quite buzzing, right? So
it's very vibrant, and we've got we've got a really active state agency that provides some micro grants, that kind of stuff, some assistance in helping out. It is very vibrant, but it could be better. The one area where we kind of fall down is generally it's easy to get venture capital funds in Ireland. There's none here, I don't think, are quite unsophisticated. They generally kind of tap out once the ticket size gets a bit too big, and they start to become a bit derogatory. So, for example, VCs in Ireland are not interested in AI. They're like, that ship has sailed. No, the ship has sailed for them because they can't afford to keep up anymore. They didn't go in at seed, or they can't follow their money because they haven't got the funds. So where we fall down in Ireland is the institutional funding landscape tends towards B2B SaaS products, where you can spend 350,000 developing a V1, launch it to market, let your users work out the kinks, and then by V9 you've got a really amazing version. But if I had, we knew it would cost us about 4 million to get to market. And if I had €1 for every time an investor said, oh, you need 4 million, but what could you get to market for 400,000? It's like nothing. I couldn't get anything to market for 400,000. It's deep tech and AI. We're building language models. Nothing. R&D costs money. And the institutional investment landscape in Ireland likes to fund commercialization. It doesn't like to fund R&D. And if you have anything, so as a consequence of that, some very rich, IP-rich innovations that are truly disruptive fall through the cracks and fall away. We were lucky. We got 2.8 million grants. And investors love that, because when we were going back out to the investors, we were saying you're getting 4.4 million worth of R&D and it's only going to cost you 1.3. They go, that makes sense to me. But the institutional investor landscape is quite unsophisticated in that way. It lacks any sort of, there's very little venture in it. It's more sure thing capital.
Why don't you ask the last question?
Yes, I steal your question, actually, Michiel.
Steal it back.
So we have a lot of companies here, big companies in the audience. What can they learn from Chirp?
What can they learn from Chirp? Well, what I always like about Chirp is we've 18 people in the team. We're extremely scrappy. We would like to think that no matter how big we get, we'll always behave like a startup. We'll never pay a retainer. We'll always look for a contract fee and then try and get a discount off that. It's a reasonably flat kind of landscape. I go in, I've got a CTO, we're the two kind of leaders of the company, but we sit with everybody. There's no segregation. Anybody that has an idea comes to us. Everybody is always asked to be innovative and contribute their ideas. We would like to hope, one of the speakers said, once you get beyond 10 people, you don't know what's going on in your company. We would like to think that that's not true of Chirp, and I would like to think it will never be true of Chirp. So you get very large organizations that have kind of fat levels of middle management in the middle that don't really quite tell you the truth. We would like to kind of make sure that doesn't happen, and that everybody feels that they've got access to myself and Mark and that kind of thing.
Yeah, company culture is very important here. Thank you so much for that
My pleasure.
final thought.
Thank you.
And the nice conversation.
Thank you so much, Rena. Thank you.